thanks again. And I'm going to just rush through a quick slide. It gives a kind of feel for basically the overall content of the webinar. So it impacts us all throughout the industry, whether you're assessing a new play, exploiting an existing asset, trying to improve operational efficiency, dealing with regulatory compliance and risk management. All areas have a fundamental need for as good data quality as the business can afford to have. Now, what is everybody has their own requirements in terms of data quality. There's many standard rules, but often these are needing to be customized to meet specific project requirements or they've come 400 and odd rules, so could be applied as is, but I suspect that most, if not all, would have some degree of customization in the organization. So it's not just the rules themselves that might require some customization, it's how you wish to use those rules. So, for example, you may wish to check and even change data actually in flight, carry out a data quality check. Data is being moved from one system to another, and this might be an area where you would want to have a transform that actually incorporates data quality rules. Equally, an existing data set and you want to check it and see where the data is not conform to the standards that the organization has set. So lots of options in terms of how you might use these rules to biz practice. The final, I guess, on this slide is sustainability, and this is quite an important one. It's coming up more and more when we're talking with operators, with vendors, and really is talking about, what are these rules? How easy are they to change? How easy are they to move forward and introduce new rules? How easy are they to maintain? Are they to create new rules? All that kind of cost that might be involved in maintaining that level of data quality in an organization. So we've got some examples to show you. What I'd like to do is now hand you over to the person who's going to do the real work here, and that's Chris Griffin. So I'll just pass to Chris. So in a second, I'll just change. Chris, if you'd like to say hello.
Hi there. Let's go and take you through the next step of today as well. So we'll go through and have a look at an example. So I just share my screen. We'll be ready. So we screen share. Go back up to the slide. Okay, so quick of what we're going to discuss today. So we'll have a look at implementation of some PPDM rules defined by PPDM. We shall see the act rules, the ways of creating and ways of updating them. Load models, so in terms of the tools that we use, how the models, how we can swap those models over. We'll have a view how dates can be managed. So if you're going to be issuing rules out, so if you're creating the rules, issuing a particular version of them, and then changing how those rules are passed. Rules, usually a list of rules, then you won't actually categorize them down. So either by module, by tables, the rules themselves. So a number of ways you might want to structure the rules that are executed at any one time. Reporting. So how are the reports coming out? Are they coming out in that file, or coming out to a database, or XML, or some other representative form? So for this is PPDM rules website. So this was taken yesterday. There are 474 rules at the moment. So they have the rules. They went through about a year ago, I think, and revamped a number of these rules and I made sure they were okay, and they've actually given these now to some of these rules. So the rules today, we're just going to have a look at a couple in particular detail. Rule 107 happens to be fishing elevation must be greater than ground elevation. So a simple rule. What is show you different ways in those rules with Transformation Manager. The second rule is Rule 120, and this is to the depth. A vertical depth may be less than the deepest measured depth in water. So implementing these kinds of things, we need to consider Carl's over earlier was how you're going to run them. So do you run them as a standalone operation running on an existing set of data, as maybe nightly or ad hoc as data comes in? Or obligate flight. So within TM, there's a potential to put them in as procedures. These procedures can be reused time and again in different projects. Data is being moved through before it's passed on to its final destination. Output the rule population, the many database with DBC connection, or the file is another one, but any form that TM can output. So it'll be commonly based flat file, could also be XML, could be Java, and is output with using log4j. Kind of stuff. So you're getting the data in, it goes through Transformation Manager and it's passed out onto its onwards journey, or it could be passed directly into its destination. It could be actually the journey may be a subset of what data initially came in. It may be the fact that rows in, 10 of those rows are invalid. There's only 90 rows out in that doctor's onward journey, and it could be a case for populating the destination. When you check, you could be validating against the data store, or you could be validating against data that's already in that destination. It can continue on valid, then it can generate a report which can follow them, be corrected, and back through the Transformation Manager. So in some cases that if that file and rules that whole file is terminated and needs to get through to the onward journey or destination until the corrections have been made. Deployment then, again, if you've got your PPDM database or review thereof, you can use your manager to validate that database. You can use Transformation Manager where able to do automated correction to actually orderly cleanse the data to web, and any other information then can be passed out for manual intervention if required. So what I miss is that Transformation Manager allows us to plug in commands where they're ready to carry out the particular task that's required of them. So we're not providing the workflow, we're providing these key components just to carry out specific tasks. So let's continue to the demonstration. I'll swap over to Transformation Manager Design Tool. Main screen that you'll see on Transformation Manager Design Tool. So I've seen it before, so just to give a quick tour around, on the left-hand side we have a projects window. So what we'll show today is 3 projects. What we'll pull in is some Teapot Dome data, and we're going to move that through to a PPDM database. So you see we're going to load well header data, a second update well header data, and we're going to have a look at will be to evaluate the rules at Loan project. So the 3 projects there, they are create and demonstrate different items. So they'll all give a different insight into how TM can be used in a quality environment. On to the models, we have a PPDM create database, which is just for I think it was for outputting the data or the to a database. We have the standard TM error, which allows us to catch the errors that are coming through and report in any form that we want. Finally, there we have the Teapot well, and actually the Excel file that we're bringing in that was made in the Teapot Dome. We have the procedures. So as I said, we're going to have a look at PPDM rule 107 and 120 today. You can see we've got a number of other different procedures that we'll also be using potentially as we look at our projects. These procedures, they can be reused in any project that we're working on. So our first project, so we can see our source model with Teapot, our PPDM 3.8. Here we can see that there's sheet 1 from the Excel, and there's the name in it. Base, we can see there's the table and the calls. If we expand, we can see we've got one transform within there. Pretty much just to set up a few bits, but there's one prime transform that we're carrying out there, which is sheet 1 to well. So what we see on the left-hand side, we have the transform source model down here for reference at the bottom page. At the top, with the actual element we're dealing with, in this case, it's sheet 1, and attributes within that sheet 1 that we can map. We have the mapping description, which we move that data. We have it. You can see we have the full model of PPDM 3.8. Top here we have well, which is the actual element we're going to deal with, and we're going to populate some data into. A few more icons on the well side, so you can see we have the little green icon. Down the ID is mandatory by the solid block. I is mandatory and a primary key by the orange block. Down, we can see at the bottom in PPDM, as I'm sure many of you are aware. But one and for the first ones as well. Obviously, create this information in the center pane. You can simply drag and drop. So we could take spud date, look, spud on the target, and by dragging one, I'll put as that row of data into our model. So in it, the matching. So when you create these maps initially, the names are very similar. You can go off on maps itself, and then you can just verify and update where you need to if you want to. It always comes with the kind of station, insert various blocks of code in there. You can see rules available, PPDM 107, 120. The rest of our number of inbuilt functions all available to us. IDE end behind this, and that's what powers the kind of cohesion features, the debugger, things like that. So it's a simple map, really. I mean, we're just doing one-to-one mapping and spud data. You can see we're loading the depth, deepest depth, and in. And with that, what we can see is we've got an if condition, and we're going to look at rule 120. We pass in what was from our source, and we're going to rule, and then depending on what happens to that rule, rather than that rule outputting valid, no, it's not valid. It's also going to have in this case, small effect on the output data. And all is the PPDM GOD is either going to be just a sequence number, or it's going to be 99 and sequence number, the rule valid. So it could actually, alter row or any, if that row is going to be placed into the target at all. So it could control it more than just whether there's a particular prefix to a value. Let's have a quick look at rule 120 while we're through it. Just double click to show. It's exactly the same as the in terms of what we're doing. I've taken some of the text from the PPDM website just to give some description. You can see it's deducting the TVD from deeper steps from TVD and checking that against 0. And we'll return true or false. Also output some to give us errors to say what's actually incorrect if there's any violent rule. We're using output log in this case. And again, a quick look at that one. We can say simply done or off by this logic condition. And it's going to call our inbuilt functions login. So that is the actual file that will go through to log4j that we're going to output it to. Built up quite tidily in terms of how things are coded. As I was saying, these things can be used, so any procedure can be used anywhere. With what we've created, we click build, and this subject for. So what this does, it creates a Java jar now to run the project. And there are ways in which you can run the project, and as we do once this is built in the migrator, and we'll see different ways that we can actually execute the project. So now built. We could run it within the designer itself, and also we could run it plug it there. But in this case, we'll launch the migrator, which is kind of a standalone tool that allows us to run what we've got. So here we've run it because it already knows what's up. So you can see the Teapot Dome had a modifier, and what I did was I just reduced it down to just 7 rows. I'll load in for this demonstration. And the top, you can see it configured username and password, and it's just running on a VM on my machine. We've done that, then we can hit run. What's happening is this: the data's actually been from the Excel file and being loaded into the database. We've got some statistics come out about the rows. You can see 1,317 rows were read and also 317 were written. So demonstration will not actually prevent any of those rows from going through. But we will have some logic about whether those rows are valid or not valid. So now PPDM, we can actually connect. So we're already connected, which is I can just go down you can see 200 rows. If I refresh, we'll see there we go, rows 17. So we can see that we've populated. So there's a PPGID. If we scroll, there we go with 999 in front of us. So those are rows that had that rule, and as a consequence of that, we've rather put the sequence number in and prefixed it with 99 in this case. A simple really, but it shows you some of the features and functionalities that you can do. And that rule, rather than just adding 999, it could stop that row from going in completely. Okay, that gives us a preview of taking data, moving it through, and actually putting it into the target in this case, altering the data depending on whether we're adhering to some rules. So with that, we can actually have a look at our second project, which is a weather. Similarly, imagine, and then open that pane here. And we're doing sheet 1 for well. In this case, what I do was try and assume a few things. So assuming that this update data is coming from maybe a different system, similar system, but slightly different. So there's no deeper step needed. And as we discussed in the slides also, it may be that you want to verify the data against something else, so you can use the out and against it. So we can take that dot depth, and which is the steepest depth, that with the total depth to check our error rule. Well, there's populations, and we're also calling rule 107. And we're checking that with the elevation and Datum elevation. So these rules now are being called without any manipulation of the transform. So we're not going to see the features of the first one. So this is the X that I've edited. So you can see this time around, we just have 9 rows. Some of them changed. So this one, they were related to the total depth. And we've corrected for those. Those were our initial sheet, and one is new added. Just give us an example of adding a row in as well. So we see that for the update. So what I do is, I'm saying from our first run, we logged the information out, so we can actually view that log of the error. Here you can see the initial through of 1,317 rows. The first I actually manipulated, I edited myself, and I just changed the values by 100 to make sure they violated the rule so that we could actually see some information. And out in those 1,300 rows, there were also a number of other wells that violated the rule, primarily because there were no values set. So it helps to start to see different areas, I expect that data to be missing in certain rows as related. So again, quickly, I could also see where the from that incoming data. So fitting the well, we know what we're going to do. We're going to load these 9 rows in. It's going to update our target for those, and we're going to add another. But if we could run it within Transition Managed Designer, or we can edit it by using the command and that's creating a transform pack. So build by creating the pack, what it allows us to do is schedule it to run it off a command line. So as that loads, we'll launch the data. So click run. You can see the modified update. So I could execute transform. It was exported a deployment pack. So deployment pack, rather than actually once you've created your deployment pack, just to show you, we've 3 packs that I've created. Okay, so we're just going to run the update. Do is type run form, and then name of the transform pack that we're going to run. Return. So what this is just running it straight line. So there we can see that it's run. It gives us that elements written to 9. But what we'll see when we go look, the designer, swap back to here, can see by one row, it's now 180. As we said, 8 rows are potentially updated with this new data coming in, and what's been added. Before our recording, so as we were now, again, we're just logging into a file in this case. You could to the database as well. I think screen and the log is all we're firing it out to at the moment. In fact, I can do it from. Yeah. So we've got some more rows now populated with a log. We still have the step there that's invalid, but we have added one of them within those 9 rows that we passed in. So one selected, one error. You can see an issue as well. It's been create a deepest depth again, another from the depth. We can also see for the new row that depth is failing at the moment, primarily because we're not getting value passed in for that deepest depth. Oh, quite like to see how you can build up this. You could also write it out to a database saying, or the database is probably one of the methods. So once we've loaded data, we've updated data from a different stream in. So what the state of the data is that's come in. If we had it as it was coming in and we just had this already within base, with standalone project, so as we said, there were a number of different ways of running it. So running it as a project, we've got a little in terms of what. So again, in this, rather than creating its procedures, I've just rules directly to our center pane. So again, can be edited quite easily here. Whether the rule is single or whether they're defined fully in here is completely optional. In case, what we particularly can do is write out to our target database as well. Again, once we're okay with it, we can run it as a transform. We can run transform on the people validation rules. So once we're happy with that, so again, it's now processed those 1,018 records through all the records in the database, check the rules, and again, if I'm here, we can read the log, and we'll see the new information that's been logged in this case. So, service longitude latitude is becoming an issue for new wells, not populated, but you can still got our previous errors that we reviewed before that have been so we can see some and the elevations getting pulled up there on that particular So again, quite quickly, how you can start to build these things up, how you can run them. So you can run them from this tool. You can avoid as a transformation pack. You can actually run them from River. So if you have Java code, you can call it directly within there. Thing just to cover was if we are going to change these models. So if things are changing as we're going along, perhaps PPDM 3.8 model updates in particular tables that you want to add into it, or perhaps exactly your source file may change. So what's being provided from a particular application they may provide a different file, different format, different columns. So we need to do load model, as you can see, a database flat file generic pack. So we provide for models built XML, XSD, or DTD. You can send it's just this one. You can see it's just literally add password URL, give it a name, set a couple of bits of duration, and you run, it will load in the new model for you, the database, and put in tables and, well, definitions basically. What it does with PPDM is it actually pulls out the comment. You actually, all the hard work that those guys have done, various attributes is within it. So there's the comment for in, and we can comment it for the well. And this is really what they've added to their schema definition, and TM pulls it out automatically. Okay, models loaded in again. We can do the same for the flat file or the files. To change them, all you do, right click, change model. Again, it's 3 steps. You pick your new model you want to change it to, configure whether you want to pass any procedures over. As simple as that, it'll swap over. There's issues with the mappings that we now have defined against that new model. Okay, the end of the demo for today. I'll just swap back to this just to cover our couple of slides. So, as Carl, it's a lot about sustainability these days. So as rules change, it's how you manage that rule change, how you version it. So again, Transformation Manager, it can all be added to version control and actually version out what's actually being provided. So you version not basically, which is the mappings, but you can version out your transform packs as well. It also has things like reuse. So again, in PPDM kind of base rules or your own standard base rules, you can use them, and you can also add a particular area, particular vision occur. Conclusion: as we know, data quality continues to exist in many forms. Each will provide both service and solution that you may have. So we own products, so as you can see, Transformation Manager is a key product that we'll use in actually doing the data migrations, but also in terms of doing the data quality, data validation. So it's an interesting project to see how those people, well, see what they were initially. Over time, we've gone through and looked at them, implemented some of them, just see how they work within TM and how they could be implemented. So as in a workflow where we're firing data through and populating a file or data onto a next stage, next file format, or in a standalone project over a common data, such as in this case PPDM 3.8. And shame is that it's quite happy to fit in both of those environments. The key components you need to carry out those functions. So thank you. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask.
I've got a couple of questions here. I guess a good one that I received, not to suggest that the others weren't, but this one I thought was particularly pertinent. And a question of what limitations, what had we seen as a limitation to the current language, if you like, that's in the center pane in terms of data quality rules.
So defining the rules. The rules are center pane using the center pane, the SML language that is defined as. So you can find a wide language in terms of what it can do. With TM, what you also have is the ability to navigate the relationship. So you can do quite a lot structurally as well. So although our example didn't show it, as a simple sheet to database, in terms of validating your structure, TM does allow a lot of power in terms of that is structurally correct, and that you can go and get information, validate various pieces from other places within your data. So the aspects we haven't shown in TM today, they're certainly available. And I guess as a kind of catch-all caveat, I guess in some ways I don't like to use it, but also allow us to call out to Java. So in the same way that we use the procedure today, import Java methods, I use them in exactly the same way. So if you do something custom that you already do or you want to develop within Java, it's to query some sort of live system to check the value that UTM evidently, then you method and Java method within just the same as any procedure for you to extend the project well beyond the common bounds of Transformation Manager.
A question that I think I might be able to answer as much as Chris can. One question is offering the product or is it a service? And the answer on that question is it's both. We offer Transformation Manager and it's used in the industry directly as a product. But I have to say that we typically recommend that we work with the vendor, the software vendor or the or operator, at least in terms of building the first implementations. Actually, we're finding that we're doing much more in terms of service, in terms of us actually using Transformation Manager to build the necessary solution or mappings, the project team or individual who's got the job to put things together. Into data quality, we're very open to actually working with organizations to extend their own library of data quality rules or build on existing sets of rules like PPDM, using those as a baseline with which to build a more comprehensive or tailored set of rules that can be used across any things that organization needs to build. Conscious that we've overrun by a reasonable chunk of time here. I think what I'll do is I think we probably need to draw to a close. And what I will do is, for those questions that we haven't been able to answer straight away, I'll get back to the individuals who put those questions forward. So apologies that we have overrun by a reasonable chunk of time. And thank you very much for your time. Thank you very much for taking the interest in what we're doing. We would very much like to talk further on the subject of improving data quality as a whole and seeing how we might provide greater help on that. So thanks very much for your time, and I guess hopefully catching up with you at some time in the future. Thank you.
Sure.